The Japan of World War II was a complicated blend of ancient traditions, modern expansionism, state religion, radical right-wing politics, and even Buddhism. Having evolved in Japan for well over 1,000 years, Buddhism was not immune to the changing religious and political structure of Japan during this period. In fact, the Japanese military borrowed much from Buddhism. Additionally, a great many Buddhist followers and leaders alike supported Japanese aggression during World War II. The growing nationalist movement in Japan during the start of the 20th century adopted several traditions to unite the Japanese people under a common set of ideals. Two of these traditions were the Bushido Code and the Shinto religion, both of which have strong ties to Buddhism. The Bushido, or Way of the Warrior, was the code of the ancient samurai warriors of feudal Japan. In its evolution over the centuries, Bushido borrowed much from Shinto, Confucianism, and the Rinzai school of Zen Buddhism. From Rinzai, Bushido borrowed the importance of austerity, detachment from the material world, and no mind concentration as not just approaches to life in general, but to combat as well. The Rinzai school taught the importance of martial arts as a path to self-realization and to the expression of one's Buddha nature, a teaching that fit in well with the samurai warriors of feudal Japan, as well as with the militaristic Japanese government of the early 20th century. With the samurai facing death on a daily basis, the belief in reincarnation helped assuage fear and reduce hesitation on the battlefield. Zen meditation taught focus and attainment of a level of thinking beyond words, which can aid in quick reaction in combat situations. The limitless boundaries of a mind focused on Zen teaching allowed warriors to fight without fear and without preconceived limits on the body. The right-wing leaders of Japan saw these ideals as a spiritual backbone for an army as well as a nation. Many other teachings of Zen Buddhism were used to build a unified wartime mentality throughout Japan during World War II. For instance, death is not approached with fear in Zen, and many Zen priest writings describe meditation on the inevitability of death as the central theme and purpose of meditation itself. Samurai warrior and Zen priest Yamamoto Jocho wrote, "Meditation on death should be performed daily, and consider oneself as dead beforehand." Yamamoto Jocho lived several centuries before World War II, but his message shows the connection between the military and Zen Buddhism was deep-rooted. It is not difficult to see how useful the ability to eliminate the fear of death is for an army. Similarly, the concept of no self can be linked back to the earliest of Buddhist teachings and can also build on the mentality of a strong soldier. In a 1935 article, a Zen teacher wrote, "Having entered the realm of the forgotten self and non-self, it then becomes possible to render filial piety to one's parents and loyalty to one's sovereign." It was not just those who wrote political and military policy, but also many Buddhist leaders who acknowledged and even embraced the connection between Bushido and Zen Buddhism. D.T. Suzuki, a man well known for spreading Zen interest to the Western world in the 20th century, recognized the connection between Zen Buddhism and Bushido. Following the Japanese victory of the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905, he states, "The essence of Bushido is no more nor less than that of Zen." Suzuki also states that Zen's influence on Japan and its roots throughout China and India enable these regions to be more readily assimilated by the Japanese. There can be no doubt that the Bushido Code, adopted by the Japanese military during World War II, has a firm foundation in Zen. The official state religion of Japan during World War II was Shinto, and while its ties with Buddhism were officially outlawed in 1868, the two religions were not completely separable. Shinto and Buddhism coexisted in Japan since Buddhism's introduction to the country in the 6th century. Both religions adapted over the centuries and even fused into the Shinbutsu Shugo, meaning Shinto, Buddhism, learn, join together. Throughout Japan's history, many temples and shrines were used for both Shinto and Buddhist practices. Only when nationalist agendas thought it necessary to establish Shinto as the official state religion did a separation of the two religions occur in Japan. Even with this separation of Buddhism from the official state religion of Shinto, many aspects of Zen remained ingrained in Japan and some teachings were still maintained even within the military. In January 1941, the Field Service Code was issued to the military detailing protocol. Religious practices were included in this field manual, which outlined the ritual of commanders leading their men in weekly spiritual education. A similar book, published by the Department of Military Education and created to accompany the Field Service Code, is titled Death and Life Are One, which is a phrase borrowed from Zen. The booklet also contained this quote: "It was the Zen sect that furnished the warrior spirit with its ideological and spiritual foundation. It did not take long before the Field Service Code became a popular read outside of the military, and commentaries and readers' guides were even published for civilians. This link between military and civilian populations further aided in the unification of the Japanese people." Despite Shinto's status as the official state religion, a great many Buddhist priests took part in funerary rites for deceased soldiers in Japan during World War II. In fact, the 200,000 Buddhist priests in Japan were the primary providers of funerary rites, and the majority of those who died in the war were honored in Buddhist temples. While burying and paying tribute to the dead is not a strictly pro-war stance, many Buddhist priests also read and promoted the Field Service Code, and even identified it as a product of Zen Buddhism's own making. The Soto Zen sect added chapters to the Field Service Code and ended their addendum with, "The main text of the code follows with the hope that it will be used for evangelization efforts." The Japanese military of World War II also borrowed much from the traditions of Buddhist monastic life. In an effort to increase efficiency within the military, a major in the Japanese army visited a monastery in 1907 to seek guidance. From this encounter, several traditions of the Zen monks were adopted by the military. They began using eating vessels similar to a monk's requesting bowls, in place of the pasteboard eating utensils that were more difficult to clean and would often harbor bacteria. There were other more philosophical aspects of both monastic and military lifestyles that allowed for the exchange of ideas between the two. For example, both monks and soldiers placed higher regard on the time a member had been in service than on one's age. Additionally, both lifestyles were simplistic, direct, and focused, which allowed for a great deal of compatibility between groups that may not share apparent similarities at first glance. The similarities even led to the spread of this song throughout the Japanese military. "Oh, how we dislike the military, with its metal teacups and metal chopsticks. We are not Buddhas. What a pity they feed us as if we were." One intriguing example of Buddhism within the Japanese military was General Cho Isamu. General Cho was the second in command of the Japanese forces at Okinawa and also an ordained Buddhist priest. Years before he had his position at Okinawa, while still a colonel, he asked permission to postpone his lunch for 1 hour every day in order to recite the Lotus Sutra. Cho had also participated in the Japanese invasion of China during the 1930s. Cho claimed he had given the order to kill all captives during the December 1937 rape of Nanjing. In this occupation of Nanjing, between 250,000 and 300,000 people were killed, many of them civilian women and children. Even with the established connections and similarities between Zen monastic and military lifestyles, it is perplexing how Cho, a disciple and self-proclaimed expert of the Mahayana Lotus Sutra, could order the suffering and death of thousands. During World War II, there were several Zen Buddhist leaders influential in the relationship this religion had with the country and its policies. Omori Sogen was one such leader. Rinzai Zen master Omori Sogen served as a civil magistrate for 20 years following World War II. In 1970, he became a professor at Hanazono University in Kyoto, where he taught Zen practice and meditation. Additionally, he served as president of Hanazono University for 4 years and is known for opening several dojos in Japan and Hawaii. Although he is well known for these beneficial actions after World War II, we see that Sogen was not only in support of the government during the war, but he also participated in it. Before World War II, he promoted several nationalist political movements and published political leaflets from his dojo. During the war, he held a position in the IRAA, which was the Japanese equivalent of the Nazi Party. Another Zen Buddhist leader with ties to pro-war Japan was Soto Zen master Yatsutani Hakun. Yatsutani is well known as one of the small number of teachers to bring Zen to the Western world. The book, The Three Pillars of Zen,